For 8 years, Ukraine has been living in a hybrid war with Russia. This is not only armed aggression on the contact line, but also constant attacks in the information space. My dear, people have nothing to eat, and you are proud of your democracy. Almost every event in our country becomes reason for discussion on Russian state television. There are programs dedicated to Ukraine. Today, they are happily demolishing this monument. The goal is to discredit Ukrainian democracy and independence. Anything can serve as a pretext. Statements by politicians, protests, and even events in honor of official holidays. Russian TV programs do not provide for a normal, full-fledged discussion. Volodymyr Zelensky. For the first time in 30 years, the original constitution of Philip Orlik will be in Ukraine. He does not even know where the original is and in what language. Whereas in Ukraine, as in any democratic country, there is a freedom of thought expression and the opportunity to defend one's opinion. Freedom of expression is the oxygen for creativity. In Ukraine, this is guaranteed and protected right.
Але, наприклад, почули смішний жарт – смійтеся. Почули розумну, гарну думку від коміка – підтримайте його оплесками.
But over the years of information attacks from Russia, a part of society painfully perceives some of the assessments of fellow citizens. We are a free democratic country, and even in conditions of war, there can only be increased intention and the call for caution and adequacy, humanity in society. This is Ukrainian stand-up comedian Anton Timoshenko.
Не съем столько орехов, она такая, я знаю, продавай орехи. Они как биткоины в Киеве, я слышала.
Artist usually jokes about everything, about relationships, prices, friends, and politics. But one of his jokes caused a scandal in social networks.
Я розумію, що блокада
I understand that the blockade of Russian artists, Russian content, we have an information war now. This is important. But I don't like it when the fight against Mеладзе is equated with a fight for a national idea. Because if your identity is threatened by the samba of the white moth, then most likely you have a very shaky identity. Internet audience reacted with a wave of aggressive comments to Anton's sketch. There were even outright insults. Other social media users wrote that the comedian's message is clear and correct. Anton says that we should compare ourselves with ourselves, not with one of our neighbors. You did not understand the message either. There are other reasons to love Ukraine besides hatred for Russia. Of course, there can be national idea built on the opposition to the enemy, because it is the enemy. But there should be other pillars so that when we defeat this enemy, we can continue to exist and develop Ukraine as a country. Issues of national and self-identity in a country that is fighting for its territorial integrity and independence are painful. Moreover, the Kremlin is turning Ukrainian civic patriotism almost into the extremist agenda. Therefore, it is better for humorists to approach the choice of topic taking into account the current situation both in the country and in the Eastern European region, the comedian Yogislav believes. He knows this from his own experience. In 2020, in Lviv, he made a joke about Yanukovych and the Heavenly Hundred. After that, he faced a negative reaction on the internet and even threats. Realizing the consequences of his monologues, the humorist changed the repertoire.
Мені потрібно, щоб люди розуміли, що я роблю і для чого.
Сьогодні сидимо з Антоном в кафе, не то, щоб ми на свиданці були.
Joseph Zisels is a Ukrainian dissident. For most of his life, he fought against the totalitarian regime of the Soviet Union, for which he was convicted twice. In his opinion, the provocation of internal disunity in Ukrainian society is a part of Russia's hybrid war against Ukraine. Their goal is constant enmity among Ukrainians.
Це в їх інтересах. Тому я не виключаю.
It is in their interest. Therefore, I do not rule out that the right-wing goal of parties belonging to the pro-Russian part of spectrum is interested in supporting extremist actions, because their policy is to portray Ukraine as an extremist country, as an anti-Semitic country, and they do it. We have been observing for years how they do it.
Як вони це роблять?
But there is no split. It is confirmed by the Ukrainian Institute of National Memory. Ukrainians have become more sensitive to issues related to national values and self-identity. The reason for such a reaction is obvious: the armed aggression of a neighboring state and almost daily information operations against Ukrainian independence.
Найважливіше в таких питаннях – це рефлексія, здатність міркувати про…
The most important thing is reflection, the ability to reason.
Засудять це, пояснять.
There should be people who will condemn it, explain why it is terrible and shameful.
Або там…
And they will offer a civilized way, boycott our public discussion, and make the product of this discussion popular and accessible.
цієї дискусії популярним, доступним.
They will not just say you are bad, you did it, we will bully you. This will only stop the situation, fix it.
Тільки цю ситуацію закриє, закупорить.
According to Ukrainian artist David Chichkan, the state's aggressive reaction to sharp humor is more typical of neighboring countries, Russia and Belarus. It is there that they arrest for one poster or post in social networks. Punitive measures are legalized and carried out by states.
Українській державі,
The Ukrainian state doesn't need anything like that in the aggressor country. We have an aggressor, and I believe that we do not need to be like that, because we fight for some values and they fight for others. I don't see the point in holding back on something about Chikchirik. Belarusian artist Slava Komisarenko emigrated to Ukraine from Russia because of his political position. He is almost the only comedian in the post-Soviet space who supported the protests in his country and condemned the cruelty of the Lukashenko regime, and often joked about it. According to the stand-up artist, he had to leave Russia because of the threats of the Belarusian KGB. Do you know how I spent my holidays? I was put on the wanted list by the Belarusian KGB. Guys, I'll tell you a secret. It wasn't my New Year's wish. Another Belarusian comedian, Idrak Mirzaridze, was expelled from Russia for his humor. On one of the Russian TV shows, he joked about the dislike of Russians for visitors.
Я выхожу, и я матрас с братом выкидываю, который тоже не русский. Матрас?
We throw out this mattress, we go down the stairwell, and then the man comes in.
Тут чувак заходит в подъезд, мужик, и мы его решили пропустить, потому что он явно быстрее пройдет, чем мы с матрасом вниз спустимся. Он осмотрел нас, он должен, как по-моему, он должен...
He should have just passed faster. Thank you for letting me in. Or just pass and not saying anything. But he saw us, looked at us, and started walking slowly, like showing that he is in charge here. It is on my nerves.
И меня это жестко выводит.
А это, простите, что было сейчас? Вот это сейчас что было?
Idrak is native of Azerbaijan. His joke is not about invention, not a fantasy, but his own experience. After the performance, the stand-up comedian was beaten on the street, and soon the Moscow prosecutor office opened a case against the comedian under the article inciting hatred. Idrak spent 10 days in the pre-trial detention center. After the arrest, the Russian Minister of Internal Affairs banned Mirzaridze to enter the country forever. In Russia, political violence is the prerogative of the state. It is the authoritarian Russian model, and the state is only actor in the field of violent suppression of some political or social movements. Jokes on sensitive topics are appreciated all over the world, and the reaction of the society is different. The famous British comedian Sacha Baron Cohen made a series of films in which he ridicules feminists, the American canons of democracy, acts as an anti-Semite and gay, and of course, dictator.
Моя звай Барат. Я вас люблю. Я люблю секс.
His films were banned from screening in Kazakhstan and other countries. At the same time, Sacha Baron Cohen received worldwide recognition, the Golden Globe Award and other prestigious awards. But the Japanese comedian Kentaro Kobayashi lost his post as director of the Olympic Games 2020 in Tokyo. The Japanese was fired when it was found out that 30 years ago Kobayashi joked about the murder of Jews. This is an example of a healthy reaction of society to humor that is unacceptable to it. Community to which the director belonged decided that their values were incompatible with the values of the individual, and this is a common procedure. If a person joked unsuccessfully and apologized for it, then this is one story, it's a normal story, it's reputation. You can't talk nonsense about things that are very painful for society. For example, a person joked about the Holocaust and they didn't want to do business with him anymore. Ukrainian comedians admit that in Ukraine they feel free in their work, but the choice of topics is approached as consciously as possible. They check both jokes and then reaction. How do I choose which jokes I decide not to joke about? Perhaps these are jokes in which I feel that I will not bring anything new. That is, if my joke doesn't give any new context, it will not be educational or entertaining. Situation that is joked about outside of my context and my personal experience, then I decide that my opinion about it is not so important, that joke.
Мені психотерапевтка офіційно заборонила приймати участь в Фейсбук-срачах. Це означає, що якщо ви мені напишете якийсь там поганий коментар, типу там «фу, ти уродливе» або «ти жирне», я вже не буду відповідати там, типу «справжня краса вона всередині». Я напишу «тебе батя не любив».
Humor is also correlated with some kind of ethical norms. It is very easy to cross the line in such topics, and this is a poignant story. This limit is usually social convention. On the one hand, there should be the sensitivity of artists, stand-up comedians, and on the other hand, there should be some kind of thoughtfulness in the society, the community, and this limit is the golden mean, which is formed in the communication between society and the artist. It is possible to influence the artist and his bad jokes with the wallet. If buyers stop buying tickets for the concerts, the authors will probably have to rewrite individual monologues. Losing a reputation is much easier than gaining one. I really lost part of the audience. It was difficult to collect halls, especially after my first tour in Ukraine was cancelled. Some organizers do not want to cooperate with me. Some kind of discussion begins in society. Maybe even someone changes their mind or vice versa, finds some strong points in my stand-ups. Therefore, what happened is probably a plus for the discussion of these topics, for the search for some boundaries, edges, and so on. Therefore, I believe that Ukraine is still the Mecca of freedom of speech. In order for Ukraine to be such a Mecca of freedom of speech, society should resolve any issues exclusively within the framework of a civilized discussion, Anton Drobovich believes. Criticism should also be accurate, sensitive. You can make fun of such a comedian, even more in the process of humor, and to disgrace, for example, with art, that everyone will laugh at it. But this requires creativity, reflection, or a serious article. Why this is bad and call for a boycott or public apology. The right to freedom of speech in the state is not just an article in the Constitution, but also the ability of citizens to hear those who think differently, to be able to understand each other and assess the possible consequences of their words.